Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Wednesday, September 10th, about 8:15 at night, and this is our daily recap video for our YieldMax's Ultra Option Income Funds. The first is ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and the second is SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund. Reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1, posting all things related to the videos I put out and the ETFs that I cover. Today was distribution declaration day, so we will look into that a little bit, but I have started making separate videos on that so we can save time in these videos, so feel free to go check that out. It's all of Group B and the weeklies. Before we get into the video, I love to start out with the thank yous. So let me just find it real quick. Lil Gooey 169 did a new $5 super thanks. So, and just said good work. So thank you very much, Lil Gooey. Absolutely appreciate it. Appreciate everybody who has given. And even if you haven't, I just appreciate that you watch and comment and everything like that. So thank you guys. Now let's take a look at how markets moved. ULTY ended up slightly in the green, 0.18%. Looks like they went up another penny after hours. I believe our spreadsheet's showing a penny less, but yeah, the automatic pull that wherever Excel's getting it from is still coming up a penny short. But either way, a slight move to the positive. It was better at times, 562. But either way, we'll take anything in the upward direction. We'll take a look. We'll go through. CoreWeave had a big day, up 16%. But we'll go through and talk about those individually on the spreadsheets. We also had SLTY had a rough day, down 0.81%, up 1.13% in the after hours. And yes, I understand that could have been one trade, but either way, I'd like to get that one trade. They make like 1% every after hours. So somebody's taking advantage of possibly low volatility. All right, so we'll start off just a quick look at our distributions. Again, not going to go through all of them because I made a full video on that. But as far as this video is concerned, ULTY announced 9.28 cents per share, which based on the closing price, that's an 86.5% annualized yield. That is the top for the weeklies as usual, and also the top even as far as all the Group B. Generally, they have one that pays somewhere in that 80 to 100+%. They didn't have it today. Morrow was the top payer with 64.63%. Top as far as percentage-wise, Pallady was the top dollar amount, $2.44. Also, since we're talking about SLTY on this video, SLTY paid 55.2 cents, which comes out to be about a 58.5% annualized yield. So we start with the trades, but since we just talked about the distributions, we might as well check on our guesstimate. So the guesstimate from our week look ahead and payment guesstimate video was 8.97 cents. Once Monday came around, which is when they actually make the decision. In that video, I did say if I could, I'd round up to 9 cents. I mean, we're talking 0.03 of a cent, so not that big of a change either way. But they did keep it above 9, actually higher than the previous payment. So 9.28. I missed it by 3.3%, so not too far off. I've missed by more than that before. All right, we had some changes. This is I think they're just trying to drive me nuts, but they added Chewy yesterday, took them back out today. They added Elf yesterday, took them back out today, and if you remember, they added Elf and took it back out all in the same day, the day before. Added GameStop yesterday, sold back out of it today, and then just bought more shares of New Scale Power and Palantir. So let's do it while we're here rather than flipping back. Once we get to the holdings, Chewy, they sold it for $35.88. It ended the day at 35.10, 35.11. So they did time that better than the close. So nice on that one. Elf Beauty, they sold it at 134.69. 134.44. So again, they sold at a better price than closing. And then GameStop, they had two sales, 24.83 and 25.19. Both sales better than the closing price. And that one worked out well. They just added it. It did go up, and then they sold it. So not bad at all. All right, and then as far as trades, Affirm, they closed and rolled their strike down to a lower, closer to the money strike, and that was $457,000 credit. Chewy, this is just closing out the collar strategy because we just sold our shares. That brought in $1.4 million because they dropped so much that the protective puts had a ton of value. Coinbase, closing and rolling from this week out to next week, and having to raise their call strike price by $30. That's going to cost you a lot, $3.5 million. Credo Technology, same thing. We're closing this week, rolling out the next week, and having to roll the strike price up from 147 to 165, or 160, and from 150 to 165. That costs $5.2 million. CoreWeave, this one hurts the most. $20.8 million that it cost based on that huge increase. Closing and rolling to next week. And taking our strike, what did we take it from? Yeah, 97.50. So closing 97.50s and 103s and selling 126s for next week. So $20 million cost. ELF, we're just closing our collar strategy since we sold our shares. That cost $9,000. Galaxy Digital brought in $2.5 million credit, closing and rolling to next week. And adjusting. Oh, okay. So it was a put spread, and we closed that out and sold another put spread. We don't own shares, so we just trade a put spread on this. GameStop, this is just closing out the collar to go along with getting out of the fund, the shares out of the fund. That cost us $1.8 million because GameStop went up. They had a good reaction from their earnings. Stock went up, so obviously the sold calls were going to cost decent amount of money to close out. IonQ cost us $5 million to close and roll our calls, keeping them within the same week, going from 42 to 46, sliding our protective puts up by $3.50 as well. Again, that was a $5 million debit. Strategy, all we did was adjusted one of our sold calls, 1,300 of them, from 347.50 down to 335, still staying within the same trading week, $248,000 credit. Palantir closing and rolling to, looks like portions of it this week. Yeah, so the close and roll was this week, and then since we bought more shares of Palantir, we started another collar for next week. So all in all, had to increase our strike prices decently from 157.50 and 160 up to 170, and then next week's are at 172.50. Adjusted our puts up as well. Cost us $4.5 million. Reddit had a debit of $3 million. Closing and rolling to next week, adjusting our strikes from 242.50 up to 262.50. Brought our puts up from 220 to 230, and then we also purchased a 292.50 calls. So we've got a spread basically. That way, in the event Reddit runs past our sold strike, we still get to capture some of that upside. Rigetti, close and roll, still staying within the same week. Again, going from 15.50s up to 17s. That cost us $3 million. Took our puts up from 14 to 15.50 as well. So that's real nice. We went from selling the calls at 15.50 all the way to locking in the puts at 15.50. So obviously it cost some money, but stock went up and we are locking those gains in. SMR, new scale power. We talked about buying more shares, so we're going to sell more calls and buy more puts, get that collar strategy going. 36.50s brought in 546,000, and finally Upstart was a credit of $4.3 million, closing 67s and lowering the strike to 65s on those calls, and then we closed our 70s. That first was within the same week. Then we closed our 70s and rolled them out till next week as 67.50s. So kept some for this week, sold some for next week. $4.3 million credit. So on the trading day, we had a debit or loss of $37.7 million. Generally, that would go with a increase in share values, but today was a little different, so it came with a decrease. And then that makes today kind of odd or surprising that we overall lost $5 million of value. We didn't lose. We dropped in value by $5 million, and we lost $37 million or spent $37 million trading, and somehow we went up a penny or two. When we take a look at how our underlying positions are doing, Affirm was down 4% today. They closed and rolled those sold calls. AppLovin up 1.6%. Both strikes are in the money, expiring Friday by 1.2 and 1.7%. Webull down almost 4% today. They've got 13.50s and 14s for this week, 3.8 and 7.6% out of the money. Chewy was the big loser today, down over 16.5%. They sold the shares. They closed everything out. Coinbase down just over 1%. They actually chose to roll the in-the-money strikes and left the out-of-the-money 322.50 still in play for this week, 2.25%. Credo Technology up over 10% today. Everything got closed and rolled. CoreWeave up over 16.88%. Everything got closed and rolled. Elf Beauty was down 3.16%. It was an odd trade again, right? We've got 100 million in most underlyings. We had 2 million in those, and in and out of them yesterday, in and out of them today. But we closed everything out as far as the options are concerned as well. As far as government obligation funds, we got almost 300 million sitting there, 295 to go along with another 373. So we've got tons of money on the sideline at this point. $660 million, $668 million, I think. So tons of money. If we get a downturn, we're going to be able to jump in and buy a lot. First Solar up 0.36%. They've got 207.50s expiring Friday, 1.82% out of the money. So this was the one where they have a iron condor, right? So they've got sold calls at 207.50, purchased calls at 212.50. Then we've sold puts at 190 and purchased at 185. The price is sitting in between the two, so we are making out well on both ends, and obviously the higher up. So if it ends between them but up close to the 207.50, it's kind of the best case scenario altogether. We win the top way, we win the bottom way, and our shares increase in value. Galaxy Digital, all positions got closed and rolled. GameStop, we sold our shares after the 3.3% increase. All options got closed and rolled. Robinhood down 0.88%. Still sitting at that nice new high number since getting added to the S&P. 118s expiring Friday are still about 0.5% out of the money. IonQ down about 1/3%. The deepest in the money calls got closed and rolled, along with the puts that go along with those, 17,988. The other remaining 22,000 puts stayed, along with the sold calls at 43 that are just about 2% in the money. Lululemon, we've got this put spread, no shares. I believe they were down today. I don't even know where I have that on this chart. Lulu, there you go. Yep, they were down 1%. We don't track it because we don't own shares, so it's not changing the market value. But with that drop, our $162.50 puts are still 0.85% out of the money. Strategy was down 0.6%. They called it a win, closed out the farthest out of the money calls. They still have 330s and 342.50s in play for Friday, 1 and just about 5% out of the money. Oklo down 0.3%, no action taken. 72s and 73s are in the money, 1 and 2.3%. 74s are out of the money by 0.34%, all expiring Friday. Palantir up 2.7%. Most everything got closed and rolled. They do still have 165 calls that are in play for Friday that are 1% in the money. Reddit up 7.8%, but they closed and rolled all positions. Rigetti down 1.88%. The deeper in the money calls got closed and rolled. The $16 calls expiring Friday are still in play, 1.1% out of the money, I'm sorry. Rocket Lab down 1.83%. They've got 45.50s and 46s in the money, 0.3 and about 1.5%. And then 46.50s, all three expiring Friday, 0.7% out of the money. NewScale Power down 2.9%. 36.50s for this week and next week, and just about evenly spread, 19,000 to 18,000, 6.3% out of the money. Tesla, we've no shares, we just have a put spread, and they are 0.8% out of the money on those sold 345s. Unity Software down 5.25%. Still in the money on those 43s, but it's a great thing that they didn't close them out yesterday when they were 5.5% in the money and had an extra day. So now another day ticked by and this dropped off. They're going to be greatly decreased in expense to close out. 44s and 45s also in play, 2 and 4.4% out of the money. And finally, Upstart was down. That's a rough day, 9.4%. Now that I'm seeing that, I wish I saw it earlier. I probably would have sold $60 puts. So I might try to do that tomorrow. All positions got closed and rolled. And so this has actually updated since I started. So I will correct that on the other page. But all those changes is how we had a $5.6 million decrease in value. There we go. It finally updated. ULTY closing at $5.59, which is right about what it was worth when the day started. That's what our NAV tells us. Yesterday, we had a small decrease, 200,000 shares, people selling out of the fund, bringing us just under 550 million outstanding shares. We're still valued at over $3 billion. And most recent distribution was 9 cents. On Friday, that'll turn into a 928. So today was declaration day, tomorrow is X day, and Friday is payday. Let me real quick just paste this before I forget. And then we'll switch over to SLTY. Try to get through SLTY a little quicker since it has much less interest and people in it. So for starters, they just bought to close shares of Applied Digital, Bloom Energy, and Bitmine Immersion. None of them was a complete closeout. It was just portions. So in this fund, they start out by selling shares rather than buying them. So they have negative shares, and then they buy them back to close them. The hope is that they go down, so you buy them back for less than you sold them for. All right, Applied Digital was closing out the options that went along, the 86 contracts that went along with the 8,600 shares. That brought in $4.2 million. Bloom Energy, same thing, 27 contracts to go with 2,700 shares that were sold. That brought in $10,000. Bitmine Immersion just closed and rolled, just closed out. Same thing. I don't know why I can't think straight. Closed out 24 contracts to go with the 2,400 shares that they closed out of. That brought in $6,000. BitDeer had a ton of trades, but big picture is bought to close all their sold puts, sold all their long calls, the protection, and then they bought calls for next week, sold short puts for next week to generate income, and then also sold calls further out of the money than the purchased calls. They help generate some income to help pay for the purchasing of the protection. All in all, that resulted in a $55,000 credit. Let's just take a quick look. We're selling, is BitDeer, yeah, 1350. So they're selling 1350s. What we closed out were 13s. So that's not bad. Or let's see, it goes the opposite direction. So yeah, the stock kind of moved up. So now we're selling puts at 1350 instead of 13. And finally, Mara, just closing the sold puts and selling more at a higher strike, bringing them closer to the money, still within the same week, $11,000. So actually made a profit on every option trading, we'll call it block today, resulting in an $88,000 credit for our options trading. So far on the week, we are decently in the positive. One bad day with 2 better days. And that's going to go along with a decrease in value. I did forget to talk about the payment, so we can hit that before we switch pages. My estimate math-wise came out to about 64.6 cents. I rounded that up as my guesstimate and guessed 65 after last week's 70, thinking that they were going to decrease it. I was right on the direction, just not right on how far in the direction. The announcement was 55.2 cents per share. So it's already down almost 15 cents less than last week's. And that was, we'll call it a surprise to the downside by 17.75%. When we take a look at the holdings, we'll start off. Adobe was down 1.1%. That's good for the fund. Again, if we start out by selling the shares, we got to buy them back to close them out. So if it goes down, we get to buy it for less. So that increased our value by $10,000. Puts are 5.76% out of the money. Astera was up 7.4, going the wrong way. That hurt our value by $63,000. Puts are now almost 10% out of the money. Applied Digital up 11.7%, and it's not even the biggest gainer in this shorting fund. That's a bad thing. That hurt us for $107,000. Our sold puts are 17.5% out of the money. The good thing is we do have protective calls. Think of it opposite of ULTY, where you'd have protective puts. Those are now in the money, so that value will be much better tomorrow than that 14.5 cents once the holdings updates. But we have also sold $18 calls to help pay for those insurance plays. They're still 6% out of the money. Next, we have Bloom Energy. This was the biggest gainer on the day, and that's a bad thing over here. Up 14.5%, dropped our value by $145,000. We did close and roll a couple of positions in here. We do still have $53 puts in play that are 15.8% out of the money. Bitmine Immersion up 2.25%. Puts sold at 40 and 41 are 10 and 12% out of the money. BitDeer down 1.5%. All positions closed and rolled. Circle Internet Group down 3.64%. That helped. $30,000 increase. Puts are sold at 107, 111, and 113. They are all out of the money. 0.6, 2.3, and 5.8%. Enphase Energy down 2.16%. Puts are still out of the money at 37 and 36, 0.3, and 3%. GitLab up 1.75%. We've got puts at 45 and 46, 8 and 6% out of the money. Lemonade was the big loser today, which would help us the most. increased our value by 66,000 with that nearly 7% decrease. We got to capture a decent amount of that before the last 1.6% of that went into the money, but no action was taken. So they're going to go ahead and let some more time value decay off of that, see if it maybe bounces a little bit. Mara Holdings down 0.44%. The sold puts got closed and rolled to a closer strike. Okay. So now we're selling puts at 16, and we've purchased calls at 16.50. Tight little window. MP Materials down 1.12%. $60 puts are still 3.9% out of the money. RH down 1.75%. $217.50 puts are almost 5% out of the money. Symbotic up 0.85%. Puts at 46.5 are 4.89% out of the money. And Tempest AI down 3.5%. Got to capture all of that, and puts are still 4% out of the money at 75. So those changes are what resulted in that $175,000. What is this thing doing? $175,000 decrease in value. I'll copy and paste that over afterwards. Oh, I forgot to update that. I'm not used to Excel not knowing SLTY yet. So 46.90. So for those of you who were waiting to let SLTY get into a different range before buying into it, if you didn't buy at 50, you've already saved yourself a couple bucks, minus that 70-cent distribution. The NAV at the start of the day was 47.18. Obviously, it's going to drop with the overall drop. Net asset value, or assets under management, just under 13 million. 275,000 shares was no change from the day before. And that's all I've got for you. So I got a dad joke of the day. So thank you for watching. Appreciate all the feedback, comments, likes, shares. I don't mind. I've had people in the comments letting me know when I made mistakes or said things wrong, or asking questions. It's all good. So as long as you're not, trying to be a jerk about it, I don't mind it at all. So no, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And dad joke of the day: how do moths swim? Moths. How do moths swim? Well, they do the butterfly stroke. All right. Thank you for watching. Have a good night and good luck trading tomorrow.